I'll never forget the day my daughter, Lauren, looked me in the eyes and said, "Mom, you're too old to need that beach house." I sold it. My heart shattered as I stood in the home my late husband and I built with love. But what Lauren didn't know was that I'd been holding a secret for years, a secret that would turn her world upside down and teach her a lesson she'd never forget. If this story hits you in the heart, hit that subscribe button and let me know where you're watching from in the comments. My name is Evelyn, and this is the story of how my daughter's betrayal led to a lesson she'll carry forever. I was 62 when my world crumbled. My name is Evelyn, and I'd spent the last 5 years rebuilding my life after losing my husband, David, to cancer. Our beach house in Malibu was our sanctuary, a 2-story haven with white walls, floor-to-ceiling windows, and the sound of waves crashing just beyond the porch. David and I bought it 30 years ago, back when it was just a fixer-upper on a forgotten stretch of coast. We poured our hearts into it, sanding floors, painting walls, planting roses in the garden. It was where we raised our daughter, Lauren, where David proposed under a sunset that painted the sky pink and gold. After he passed, that house was all I had left of him. His laughter still echoed in the halls. His touch lingered in the worn armrests of his favorite chair. Lauren was 35 now, married to Mark, a slick real estate developer with a smile that never reached his eyes. She'd always been ambitious, my Lauren Sharp, determined with a laugh that could light up a room. As a child, she'd run along the beach, her blonde curls bouncing, promising she'd never leave me. But as she grew, so did her hunger for more money, more status, more everything. I didn't mind. I was proud of her drive. I just never thought it would turn against me. The trouble started 6 months ago. I'd been living in the beach house full-time, tending to the roses, hosting my book club with my old friend Clara, and volunteering at the local shelter. Life was quiet, but it was mine. Lauren and Mark lived in a sleek penthouse in Los Angeles, all glass and sharp edges, a world away from the sandy warmth of Malibu. They'd visit sometimes, but each time, Lauren's eyes lingered on the house a little longer. "This place must be worth a fortune now," she'd say, her voice casual but pointed. Mark would nod, his calculator mind ticking. I brushed it off. It was my home, not a paycheck. Then came the phone call. It was a Tuesday, the kind of day where the ocean sparkled like it was showing off. I was in the kitchen brewing coffee when Lauren's name lit up my phone. "Mom," she said, her voice clipped, "we need to talk about the beach house." My stomach tightened. She didn't ask how I was, didn't mention the roses or the shelter. "It's just sitting there, Mom. You're not getting younger. Mark says it's worth at least $5 million now. We could sell it, split the money. You could move closer to us, get a nice condo." I laughed, thinking she was joking. "Lauren, this is my home, your father's home. I'm not selling." Her tone hardened. "You're being selfish, Mom. You don't need all that space. It's just you now." "Just you." The words cut deeper than I expected. I tried to explain the memories, the roses, the way the house felt like David's arms around me, but she cut me off. "Think about it," she said, and hung up. Over the next few weeks, the calls became relentless. Lauren would drop by unannounced, Mark trailing behind, pointing out outdated fixtures or wasted square footage. "Mom, you could live comfortably with the sale money," she'd say, her smile tight. Mark would add, "The market's hot right now. You'd be crazy to wait." I stood my ground, but each visit left me smaller, like they were chipping away at my resolve. One evening, Clara came over for tea. She's been my friend since college, a no-nonsense woman with a knack for seeing through people. "Evelyn," she said, stirring her chamomile, "Lauren's not asking. She's planning. You need to protect yourself." "Protect myself from my own daughter?" I asked, incredulous. Clara's eyes softened. "People change when money's involved, even family." I didn't want to believe her, but a seed of doubt took root. I started locking important documents, deeds, wills, bank statements in a safe David had installed in the study. I told myself I was being paranoid. Lauren was my daughter. She wouldn't hurt me. Then came the day that broke me. I'd been at the shelter all morning, serving lunch to the kids. When I got home, the front door was ajar. My heart raced as I stepped inside. The house felt wrong, like it had been touched by a stranger. Papers were scattered on the kitchen counter, and my safe David's safe was open, the lock broken. My phone buzzed. A text from Lauren, "Mom, it's done. I sold the beach house. You need to move out by next week." I sank to the floor, the phone slipping from my hand. My daughter, me only child, had betrayed me. She hadn't just sold my home. She'd stolen my memories, my sanctuary, my last tie to David. I wanted to scream, to call her and demand answers, but a cold resolve settled over me instead. Lauren thought she'd won. She thought I was weak, just an old woman clinging to the past. But she didn't know the secret I'd been keeping, the one David left me all those years ago. I sat on the floor of my beach house, the cold tiles pressing against my palms, staring at Lauren's text. Mom, it's done. I sold the beach house. You need to move out by next week. My chest ached, not just from the betrayal, but from the weight of her words. My own daughter saw me as a burden, an obstacle to her greed. The house, her house, David's and mine, was gone, or so she thought. I wanted to call her, to scream, to beg her to explain how she could do this to me, but something stopped me. Maybe it was the memory of David's voice, steady and calm, telling me to always have a plan. Maybe it was the flicker of anger igniting in my heart. Whatever it was, I wiped my tears, stood up, and decided I wasn't going to let Lauren erase my life so easily. The next morning, I drove to Clara's house, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. The ocean glittered to my left, mocking me with its beauty. Clara opened the door before I could knock, her face etched with worry. Evelyn, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. She sold it, Clara, I said, my voice breaking. Lauren sold the beach house. She broke into the safe, forged my signature, something she didn't even ask me. Clara pulled me inside, sat me on her worn leather couch, and poured me a glass of water. Tell me everything, she said, her voice firm but kind. I spilled it, all the calls, the pressure from Lauren and Mark, the open safe, the text. Clara listened, her jaw tightening with every word. When I finished, she leaned back, her eyes narrowing. That girl's always been ambitious, but this is theft, betrayal. You need to fight back, Evelyn. Fight back, I said, my voice small. She's my daughter. How do I fight my own child? Clara leaned forward, her gaze piercing. You fight because she stopped being your daughter the moment she chose money over you. You fight because David would wanted you to protect what's yours. Her words hit me like a wave. David. He'd always been the planner, the one who thought 10 steps ahead. When he got sick, he spent hours in his study, organizing papers, making calls, whispering to lawyers. I thought he was just tying up loose ends. Now I wondered if he'd seen something in Lauren I'd been too blind to notice. I drove back to the beach house, my mind racing. The roses in the garden were wilting, as if they knew what was happening. Inside, I went straight to the study, stepping over the scattered papers Lauren had left behind. The safe was still open, its contents gutted. The deed to the beach house was gone, but there was something else, something Lauren hadn't touched. A small, locked box David had given me years ago, hidden in a false panel under the desk. Only open it if you're in trouble, he'd said, his eyes serious. I'd never needed to before. Now my hands shook as I pulled it out. The box was heavy, made of dark wood with a brass lock. I found the key in David's old desk drawer, where he kept his favorite pens. Inside was a single envelope, sealed with wax, and a handwritten note in David's scrawl. For Evelyn, my love. If the world turns against you, this is your shield. I tore open the envelope. Inside was a document I'd never seen before, a trust agreement, dated a year before David's death. My heart pounded as I read it. The beach house wasn't just in my name. It was part of a trust David had set up, one that required my explicit consent for any sale. Lauren couldn't have sold it legally, not without my signature. There was more. A second property, a small cabin in the mountains, also in the trust, and a bank account I didn't know existed, with enough money to start over. David had known. Somehow he'd known I'd need a way out. I called Clara, my voice steadier now. She didn't sell the house, not legally. There's a trust. Clara whooped on the other end. That's my girl. What's next? I need a lawyer, I said, and I need to know what Lauren did. Clara recommended a lawyer named Susan, a shark in a pantsuit who'd handled her own divorce years ago. I met Susan the next day at her office in Santa Monica. She was all business, her gray hair pulled into a tight bun, her desk stacked with files. I handed her the trust agreement and explained everything. Susan's eyes gleamed as she read. Your daughter's in deep trouble, she said. Forgery, fraud, breach of trust ties could be criminal. But first, let's find out how far she went. Susan made calls, pulling strings I didn't know existed. Within hours, she had a copy of the sale documents Lauren had filed. My daughter had forged my signature on a deed transfer, selling the beach house to one of Mark's developer friends for $5.2 million. The buyer had already started planning to tear it down for condos. My stomach churned. Lauren hadn't just betrayed me. She'd erased our family's legacy for a quick buck. Susan leaned back in her chair. You have options, Evelyn. We can void the sale, sue for damages, even press charges. But this is your daughter. What do you want? I didn't know yet. Part of me wanted to storm into Lauren's penthouse and scream. Part of me wanted to curl up and cry for the little girl who used to hold my hand on the beach. But another part, a quieter, stronger part, was waking up. I want my house back, I said, and I want her to learn what betrayal costs. Susan nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. Then let's get to work. Over the next few days, I stayed with Clara while Susan built my case. Lauren called once, her voice cold. Mom, you need to start packing. The buyers want to inspect the property. No apology, no guilt, just orders. I didn't respond. Let her think I was broken. Let her think Shed won. But Susan uncovered something else, something that made my blood run cold. The buyer wasn't just Mark's friend. He was part of a shell company Mark controlled. Lauren and Mark hadn't just sold my house. They'd sold it to themselves, planning to flip it for millions more. They'd played me, thinking I'd never fight back. I sat in Clara's guest room that night, staring at the ocean through her window. The waves reminded me of David, of his strength, his love. I wasn't just fighting for the house anymore. I was fighting for him, for us, for the life we'd built. Lauren thought she could take it all and leave me with nothing. She was about to learn how wrong she was. The days leading up to the court hearing felt like wading through quicksand. Every morning, I woke with a knot in my stomach, the weight of Lauren's betrayal pressing against my ribs. I stayed at Clara's, her small guest room a temporary refuge, but it wasn't home. Home was the beach house, its creaky porch, the smell of salt in the air, the roses David and I had planted together. Lauren had taken that from me, and no matter how many times I told myself I was fighting back, the pain of her actions clawed at me. She was my daughter, the girl I'd rocked to sleep, the one I'd cheered for at every school play, every graduation. How had we come to this? Clara was my anchor. She'd make me coffee, sit with me on her porch, and listen as I poured out my grief. I keep wondering where I went wrong, I said one evening, the sky bruising purple over the ocean. Did I spoil her? Did I not love her enough? How does a child turn on her own mother like this? Clara reached for my hand, her grip firm. Evelyn, this isn't about you. Lauren made her choices. Greed changes people. You raised her with love, but she's not that little girl anymore. You can't carry her mistakes. Her words helped, but they didn't erase the ache. I spent hours replaying memories Lauren as a toddler, giggling as David swung her in the air. Lauren as a teenager, rolling her eyes but still hugging me before bed. Lauren as an adult, her visits growing shorter, her smiles colder. When had she changed? Or had I just been too blind to see it? Susan kept me busy preparing for the hearing. She was relentless, pulling together evidence like a detective in a crime novel. She found text messages between Lauren and Mark, planning the sale months before they even told me. One message from Lauren made my blood run cold. She'll get over it. She's got no fight left. They'd counted on me being weak, on me crumbling. That hurt almost as much as the betrayal itself. I drove to the beach house one last time before the hearing, needing to see it to feel it. The roses were drooping, neglected, and a sold sign stabbed into the front lawn like a knife. I walked inside, my footsteps echoing in the empty space. Lauren had already started moving my things boxes labeled Mom's junk stacked in the hall. I found David's favorite chair pushed into a corner, a crack in its armrest. My throat tightened. This wasn't just a house. It was our life, our love. And Lauren had treated it like trash. I sat in the chair, closing my eyes and let myself remember David. His laugh, his steady hands, the way he'd look at me like I was his whole world. "You're a stronger than you know," he'd written in that letter. I clung to those words, letting them fuel me. I wasn't just fighting for the house anymore. I was fighting for myself, for the woman David believed in, the woman I'd almost forgotten how to be. The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. I sat up, poring over the trust documents, the investment account, the cabin's deed. David had left me more than money or property. He'd left me a way to stand tall. I thought about Lauren, about what Shed done, and for the first time, my anger outweighed my grief. Shed underestimated me, but so had I not anymore. The morning of the hearing, I dressed carefully, a navy blazer, a white blouse, my hair pulled back. Clara drove me to the courthouse, her hand squeezing mine as we parked. "You've got this," she said. "Show them who you are." The courtroom was cold, sterile, the kind of place that strips you bare. Lauren and Mark were already there, sitting with their lawyer, a man in a flashy suit who kept whispering to them. Lauren wouldn't meet my eyes, her face a mask of defiance. Mark, though, smirked like he thought this was just a formality. I sat beside Susan, my heart pounding but my hands steady. I was ready. Susan presented our case with surgical precision: the trust, the forged deed, the shell company, the texts. The judge, a stern woman with gray streaks in her hair, listened intently, her pen scratching notes. Lauren's lawyer tried to spin it, claiming it was a misunderstanding, that I'd given verbal consent. Susan shut that down with a copy of the trust's terms, clear as day. No sale without my written approval. When it was my turn to speak, I stood, my voice shaking at first but growing stronger. "This house isn't just property," I said. "It's where I raised my daughter, where my husband and I built a life." She took that from me, thinking I wouldn't fight back. But I am here, and I'm not letting her erase my home, my memories, my husband's legacy. The courtroom was silent. I glanced at Lauren, and for a split second I saw a flicker of something, guilt, maybe, before her face hardened again. The judge adjourned for a ruling, and Susan squeezed my arm. "You did good, Evelyn." Outside, Lauren approached me, her heels clicking on the marble floor. "Mom, why are you doing this?" she said, her voice low, almost pleading. "You're embarrassing us. Just take the money and move on." I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw a stranger. "You sold my home, Lauren. You didn't ask, didn't care. You don't get to tell me to move on." She opened her mouth, but Mark pulled her away, whispering something sharp. I watched them go, my heart breaking but my resolve unbroken. The hearing wasn't over, but I knew one thing for certain. I was done being the obedient mother, the one who'd let her daughter walk all over her. Lauren had started this war. I was going to finish it. The courtroom's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I waited for the judge's ruling, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. Susan sat beside me, her calm confidence a lifeline, but inside I was a storm of nerves and determination. Across the room, Lauren and Mark whispered with their lawyer, their faces tight with irritation. I could feel Lauren's eyes on me, but I didn't look back. I'd said my piece. Now it was up to the judge. When she returned, the room fell silent. Her voice was steady, cutting through the tension like a blade. "Based on the evidence presented, the sale of the property at 234 Ocean Drive is hereby declared invalid due to the violation of the trust's terms. The deed transfer is voided, and ownership remains with Evelyn Carter. Furthermore, the court finds sufficient evidence of fraudulent intent by Lauren Carter and Mark Thompson. A separate hearing will be scheduled to determine damages." The words hit me like a wave crashing over the shore. The beach house was mine again. I exhaled, tears prickling my eyes, but I held them back. Susan squeezed my hand under the table, her smile triumphant. Across the room, Lauren's face went pale, her lips parting in shock. Mark's smirk was gone, replaced by a scowl as he leaned toward his lawyer, whispering furiously. As we left the courtroom, Clara was waiting outside, her arms open. I fell into her hug, the weight of the victory sinking in. "You did it, Evelyn," she whispered. "David would be so proud." But the victory felt hollow. Yes, I had my house back, but my daughter, me only child, had tried to destroy me. The pain of that truth lingered, sharp and unrelenting. I wanted to celebrate, to feel the triumph, but all I could think about was Lauren's face, the way Shed looked at me like I was the enemy. Susan pulled me aside before we left. "There's more, Evelyn," she said, her voice low. "The penalty clause in the trust, it's substantial. We can go after Lauren and Mark for damages, legal fees, even punitive costs. They could owe you hundreds of thousands, maybe more. And there's the fraud angle. If you want, we can push for criminal charges." I swallowed hard. Criminal charges? Against my daughter? Susan's eyes softened. It's your call. What they did was serious forgery, fraud, theft. But I know she's family. Think about it. You don't have to decide today." I nodded, my mind spinning. Part of me wanted to destroy Lauren and Mark, to make them feel the pain they'd inflicted on me. But another part, the mother who still saw her little girl running along the beach, hesitated. I needed time to think, to feel my way through the fog of hurt and anger. That night, I went back to the beach house. The sold sign was gone, ripped out by Susan's team, and the roses looked a little less wilted, as if they sensed the fight wasn't over. I walked through the house, touching the walls, the banister, David's chair. It was mine again, but it felt differentiated by Lauren's betrayal. I sat on the porch, the ocean's rhythm steadying my heartbeat, and opened the letter from David I'd found in the cabin. "You're stronger than you know," he'd written. I held those words close, letting them anchor me. The next morning, Clara came over with coffee and a plan. "You've got the house back," she said, "but Lauren and Mark aren't done. People like them don't stop unless you make them. What's your next move?" I sipped my coffee, staring at the waves. "I want them to understand what they did," I said. "Not just the money or the house pain. I want Lauren to see what she broke." Clara nodded, her eyes gleaming. "Then hit them where it hurts. Their wallets, their pride. You've got the trust, the cabin, the investment account. Use them." That's when I remembered the second trust investment account worth $1.2 million. David had tied it to a real estate fund, one that had grown quietly over the years. I called Susan, asking her to look into it. Within hours, she had news that changed everything. "Evelyn," she said over the phone, "that fund, it's invested in a property development company. Guess who's been trying to buy into it?" My heart skipped. "Mark." "Exactly," Susan said. "His shell company's been bidding on a stake in the fund for months. He doesn't know you control it. David set it up so your name's buried in layers of paperwork. Mark thinks he's dealing with some faceless investor." I leaned back, a slow smile spreading across my face. Mark and Lauren had built their empire on real estate deals, always chasing the next big score. The fund was their latest target, a way to expand their portfolio. And I held the keys. For the first time since this started, I felt a spark of power, not just pain. "What can I do with it?" I asked. Susan's voice was sharp with excitement. "You can block their bid, sell your stake to a competitor, or raise the price so high they bankrupt themselves trying to match it. You're in the driver's seat, Evelyn." I spent the rest of the day thinking, planning. Lauren and Mark thought they could take my home and leave me with nothing. They didn't know about the trust, the cabin, the money. They didn't know about me. The ocean roared outside my beach house, its rhythm steadying my resolve as I sat at David's old desk. The trust documents spread before me. The weight of Lauren's betrayal still lingered, but now it was fuel, not a burden. I wasn't just fighting to keep my home. I was fighting to reclaim my strength, to show my daughter and her husband that I wasn't the frail, obedient mother they dismissed. Susan's revelation about the investment fund $1, $2 million tied to a real estate company Mark was desperate to buy into had handed me a weapon. Now, I needed to decide how to wield it. Clara came over the next morning, her eyes bright with anticipation. "So," she said, setting 2 mugs of coffee on the table, "what's the play? You've got the house back, but Lauren and Mark are still out there, thinking they can outsmart you." I leaned back, the trust agreement in my hand. Mark's trying to buy into the fund David set up. He doesn't know I control it. I could block his bid, sell to someone else, or make him pay more than he can afford. Clara's grin was wicked. "Oh, I like that last one. String him along, let him think he's winning, then pull the rug out." I nodded, a plan forming. But it's not just about Mark. Lauren's the one who started this. She needs to feel it too. Clara tilted her head, studying me. "You're different, Evelyn, stronger. David would be proud." Her words warmed me, but they also sharpened my focus. David had always been the strategist, the one who saw the board before the game began. Now it was my turn to play. I called Susan, laying out my idea. "Can we raise the price on the fund stake?" I asked. "Make it so high Mark overextends himself." Susan's voice crackled with excitement. "Oh, we can do better than that. I'll have the fund's manager contact Mark's company, offer the stake at a premium, say, $2 million. He'll think it's a steal, given the fund's growth. But we'll structure it so he has to put up collateral up front. If he defaults, you can seize his assets. And Lauren? I asked, my voice steady but my heart racing. She's tied to Mark's company, Susan said. She's listed as a co-owner. If he goes down, so does she. But Evelyn, are you sure? This could ruin them financially. I hesitated, picturing Lauren's face, little girl who used to braid my hair, the woman who'd sold my home without a second thought. They ruined me first, I said finally. Let's do it. Susan got to work, and I spent the next few days preparing. I moved back into the beach house, unpacking boxes Lauren had labeled Mom's junk. Each item a chipped teacup, a photo of David and me on our honeymoon felt like a small victory. I tended to the roses, watering them back to life, their red petals a reminder of what I was fighting for. But every night, I'd lie awake, wrestling with the mother in me. Could I really do this to my daughter? Could I be that ruthless? A week later, Susan called with an update. Mark took the bait, she said. He's scrambling to secure the $2 million. He's put up his penthouse and 2 of his company's properties as collateral. If he can't pay, Yow'll own them. My breath caught. The penthouse, Lauren's pride and joy, her symbol of success. How long does he have? I asked. 30 days, Susan said. He's already leveraged everything. If he defaults, it's over. I thanked her and hung up, my mind racing. Mark was greedy, reckless. He'd overextend himself just as I'd hoped. But Lauren, would she see it coming? Would she try to stop him? Part of me wanted her to call, to apologize, to beg for forgiveness. But my phone stayed silent. Then 2 days later, Lauren showed up at the beach house. I was in the garden, pruning the roses, when her car pulled into the driveway. She stepped out, her designer heels sinking into the gravel, her face a mix of anger and unease. Mom, she said, her voice tight, we need to talk. I stood, brushing dirt from my hands, and met her gaze. You've got 5 minutes. She flinched at my tone but pressed on. This lawsuit, the house, it's tearing us apart. Mark's under so much stress. Why can't you just let it go? We'll give you half the sale money, okay? Just drop this. I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. Half the money? You stole my home, Lauren. You forged my name, broke into my safe, and sold the one thing I had left of your father. And now you want me to let it go. Her eyes flashed. You're being dramatic. It's just a house, Mom. You're too old to need it. We're building something real, Mark and me. You could be part of it if you'd stop fighting us. Her words cut deep, but they also clarified everything. She didn't see me as her mother anymore, just an obstacle, a relic. I stepped closer, my voice low. You think you're building something? You're building lies, Lauren, and they're about to collapse. She froze, her confidence wavering. What's that supposed to mean? I smiled, cold and steady. Y'all see. She stormed off, slamming her car door, but I saw the fear in her eyes. She knew something was coming, even if she didn't know what. I went back to my roses, my hands steady now. The plan was in motion, and there was no turning back. Susan called the next day with news. Mark's locked in, she said. He's wired the first payment, but he's struggling to cover the rest. He's taking out loans, selling assets. He's all in. Good, I said, my voice calm but my heart pounding. Let him fall. I wasn't just reclaiming my house anymore. I was reclaiming my life, my power, my right to be seen. Lauren and Mark thought they could bully me, manipulate me, erase me. They were about to learn what happens when you underestimate a mother's strength. The news of Mark's default hit like a tidal wave, but I stood firm on the shore of my beach house, the roses blooming defiantly around me. The penthouse, the commercial properties, their entire empire, no mine, thanks to David's foresight and Susan's ruthlessness. I'd won, but the victory tasted bitter. Laced with the grief of what I'd lost, not just my daughter's trust, but the illusion that she'd ever been the girl I raised. The ocean churned beyond the porch, its roar a mirror to the storm in my heart. I'd taught Lauren a lesson, but now came the hardest part, facing her. Susan called that evening to confirm the details. The paperwork's being processed, she said, her voice steady but tinged with concern. The penthouse and properties are officially in your name. Mark's company is insolvent and creditors are circling. Lauren's listed as a co-debtor, so she's on the hook, too. They've got nothing left, Evelyn. What do you want to do with the assets? I stared at David's chair, its cracked armrest a reminder of everything we'd built. Hold on to them for now, I said. I need to think. Take your time, Susan said. But be prepared Lauren or Mark might try to reach out. They're desperate. Desperate. The word hung in the air as I hung up. Id wanted them to feel the weight of their actions, but now that they had, I felt no joy, just a deep, aching sadness. I walked to the garden, the roses glowing under the moonlight, and whispered to David wherever he was. Did I do the right thing, or did I go too far? The next morning, Clara came over, her face a mix of concern and pride. You okay? She asked, setting a bag of pastries on the counter. You look like you haven't slept. I haven't, I admitted. It's done, Clara. They've lost everything. But why do I feel like I've lost, too? She sat across from me, her face softening. Because you're a mother. You love her even after what she did. But Evelyn, you didn't do this to her, she did it to herself. You protected what's yours. That's not loss. That's strength. Her words settled over me, heavy but true. David had always been my shield, even after he was gone. The trusts, the cabin, the investment account were his way of ensuring Id never be left defenseless. Id used his gifts to reclaim my life, but now I had to decide what to do with the spoils. That afternoon, Lauren showed up. I was in the kitchen when I heard the car door slam. I stepped onto the porch, my heart pounding as she walked up the path. She looked different, her hair pulled back messily, her designer clothes replaced with a simple sweater and jeans. Her eyes were red, her face drawn, like she hadn't slept in days. Mark wasn't with her. Mom, she said, her voice breaking, can we talk? I crossed my arms, my resolve wavering but holding. You've got 5 minutes. She stepped closer, her hands trembling. I am sorry, Mom. I didn't think it would go this far. Mark said it was a sure thing that we'd all be better off. I believed him. I was stupid. Stupid, I said, my voice sharp. You forged my signature, Lauren. You broke into my safe, sold my home, your father's home, without even asking me. You called me a burden. That's not stupid. That's cruel. She flinched, tears spilling down her cheeks. I know I hurt you. I thought I was doing the right thing for us, for my future. But I was wrong. And now we've lost everything, the penthouse, the business, everything. Mark's leaving me, Mom. He says it's my fault. Her words hit me like a punch, but I didn't soften. You chose him over me, Lauren. You chose money over family. Did you think there wouldn't be consequences? She sobbed, her shoulders shaking. I didn't know about the trust. I didn't know you'd fight back like this. I thought you'd just let it go. That's the problem, I said, my voice low but steady. You thought I was weak. You thought you could take everything and it'd just fade away. But this house, this life, it's mine. Your father made sure of that. She fell to her knees in the gravel, her hands covering her face. Please, Mom, I have nothing left. The creditors are coming for my car, my accounts. I am sorry. I'll do anything to make it right. I looked down at her, my daughter, broken and begging. The mother in me wanted to pull her up, to hold her, to tell her it would be okay. But the woman Id becometh, one David had believed in, knew better. You can't undo what you did, I said. But you can start by facing it. Get up, Lauren. Go figure out who you are without the penthouse, without Mark, without my home. She looked up, her face streaked with tears, and for a moment I saw the little girl Id loved. But she wasn't that girl anymore. She nodded, slow and shaky, and stood. I am so sorry, Mom, she whispered, then turned and walked back to her car. I watched her drive away, my heart splitting in two. Id won, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like loss, like the final unraveling of the family Id fought so hard to hold together. I sank into David's chair, tears streaming down my face, and let the ocean's roar drown out my sobs. The sound of Lauren's car faded into the distance, leaving only the crash of waves and the ache in my chest. I sat in David's chair, my tears soaking into the worn fabric, the victory over the beach house feeling like a hollow crown. Id reclaimed my home, my dignity, but at the cost of my daughter. Her broken apology, her tear-streaked face, it haunted me. Was this justice, or had I become as ruthless as she'd been? I clutched David's letter from the cabin. His words, "You're stronger than you know," both a comfort and a challenge. Id fought like he wanted, but now I had to live with the wreckage. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through the beach house windows, the roses outside glowing like they were celebrating my return. But the house felt quieter, emptier, as if it knew Lauren was gone. I made coffee, moving through the familiar routine, but my thoughts kept drifting to Haralone, stripped of her penthouse, her husband, her pride. I wondered where she was, what Shed do next. Part of me wanted to call to check on her, but I stopped myself. Shed made her choices. Now she had to face them. Clara came over around noon, her face a mix of concern and pride. "You okay?" she asked, setting a bag of pastries on the counter. "You look like you haven't slept." "I haven't," I admitted. "It's done, Clara. They've lost everything. But why do I feel like I've lost too?" She sat across from me, her face softening. "Because you're a mother. You love her even after what she did. But Evelyn, you didn't do this to her, she did it to herself. You protected what's yours. That's not loss. That's strength." Her words settled over me, heavy but true. David had always been my shield, even after he was gone. The trusts, the cabin, the investment account were his way of ensuring I'd never be left defenseless. I'd used his gifts to reclaim my life, but now I had to decide what to do with the spoils. Susan called later that day with an update. "The assets are fully transferred," she said. "The penthouse, the 2 commercial properties, they are yours. Market values around $3.5 million total. You could sell them, rent them, or keep them as leverage. What's your plan?" I hesitated, picturing Lauren's penthouse glass-walled kingdom, now mine. "Can we hold off on selling?" I asked. "I need time to think." "Of course," Susan said. "But heads up, Mark's lawyer reached out. He's trying to negotiate, offering to settle the damages if you drop any criminal charges. He's scared Evelyn. He knows fraud could land him in jail." "And Lauren?" I asked, my voice tight. "She's not mentioned in his offer," Susan said. "Sounds like he's cutting her loose." The news hit harder than I expected. Mark, the man Lauren had chosen over me, was abandoning her when the chips were down. I should felt vindicated, but all I felt was pity. Lauren had built her life around him, around their shared greed, and now she was alone. Over the next few days, I threw myself into the beach house, painting the walls, tending the roses, making it mine again. But every corner held memories of Lauren, her laughter as a child, her sullen teenage arguments, her cold dismissal as an adult. I found a box of her old things in the attic: drawings, report cards, a locket I'd given her for her 10th birthday. I sat on the floor, holding the locket, and cried for the girl's shed bin, the one I'd lost long before the house. Clara suggested I visit the cabin, get some distance. I drove up to the Santa Ynez Mountains, the cedar walls and pine-scented air a balm to my soul. I sat by the fireplace, reading David's letter again, and felt his presence. "You're stronger than you know," he'd written. I was starting to believe him, but strength didn't erase the pain of losing my daughter, even if Shed chosen to walk away. When I got back to the beach house, a letter was waiting in the mailbox, no return address, just my name in Lauren's handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a single page, her words messy, as if written in a rush. "Mom, I know y'all never forgive me, and I don't deserve it. I was wrong about the house, about you, about everything. Mark's gone, and I'm starting over with nothing. I don't expect you to help me, but I need you to know I am sorry. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make this right. Lauren." I read it again, tears blurring the words. It was the apology I'd wanted, but it didn't heal the wound. It just made it ache differently. I set the letter on David's chair, wondering what came next. Could I ever trust her again? Could we rebuild anything from these ashes? I didn't know, but for the first time, I felt a flicker of hope, not for the past, but for something new. The weeks that followed Lauren's letter were a delicate dance between healing and holding my ground. The beach house was fully mine again, its walls warm with memories of David, its roses blooming brighter than ever. But Lauren's absence left a shadow, a quiet ache that lingered in the corners of every room. Her letter, simple, honest, about her new life at a coffee shop, stayed tucked in David's chair, a fragile thread connecting us. I wasn't ready to forgive, not fully, but I felt the first stirrings of something softer, something like hope. I threw myself into rebuilding my life. The penthouse and commercial properties were generating steady rental income, thanks to Susan's connections with a property management firm. The investment fund, David's final gift, sat untouched, a reminder of his faith in me. I spent my days tending the garden, volunteering at the shelter, and hosting Clara's book club again. The women filled the house with laughter, their voices chasing away the silence. But every night, as I sat on the porch with the ocean's song, I wondered about Lauren, where she was, who she was becoming. Clara was my constant, checking in daily, her sharp wit and warm hugs keeping me grounded. One evening, as we shared a bottle of wine on the porch, she asked, "Have you thought about reaching out to her? Just to see if she's really changing?" I swirled the wine in my glass, the horizon glowing pink. "I want to," I admitted, "but I'm scared. What if she's playing me again? What if she's not ready?" Clara leaned back, her eyes thoughtful. "You'll know when the time's right. Trust yourself, Evelyn. You've come this far." Her words echoed David's "You're stronger than you know," and I realized how far I'd come. I wasn't the woman Lauren had dismissed. The one Shed thought would fade away. I was Evelyn Carter, widow, mother, survivor. I'd fought for my home, my dignity, and I'd won. Now I had to decide what kind of mother I wanted to be moving forward. A month later, I got a call from an unknown number. My heart skipped as I answered, half expecting Mark's slimy voice. Instead, it was Lauren, her tone hesitant but clear. "Mom, it's me. I wasn't sure you'd pick up." I gripped the phone, standing in the kitchen, the smell of fresh coffee grounding me. "I am here," I said, my voice steady but soft. She took a shaky breath. "I am not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know I am trying. I am saving up, renting a small place now. I am learning who I am without all the things I thought I needed. I know I hurt you, and I'll never stop being sorry. I just hope maybe one day we can talk, really talk." I closed my eyes, picturing her in a cramped apartment, working long shifts, starting over. The mother in me wanted to rush to her to fix everything. But the woman I'd become knew better. "I am glad you're trying, Lauren," I said. "But trust takes time. Keep going. Show me you mean it." "I will," she said, her voice breaking. "I promise." We hung up and I stood there, the phone warm in my hand. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. I walked to David's chair, touching the letter Shed sent, and felt a weight lift just a little. The ocean outside roared its approval, and I smiled, small but real. I started small steps of my own. I sent Lauren a card, not an apology, not a reconciliation, just a note. "I am proud you're trying. Keep going." I didn't expect a response, but a week later, she sent one back, a simple "Thank you, Mom," with a pressed rose petal tucked inside. It wasn't much, but it was something. A seed, like the roses in my garden, waiting to grow. The beach house felt alive again, filled with my routines, my friends, my purpose. I framed David's letter and hung it in the study, a reminder of his love and my strength. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living fully, fiercely. Lauren's betrayal had broken me, but it had also rebuilt me, stronger than before. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky over the beach house in shades of pink and gold, the same colors David and I used to watch from this very porch. I stood there now, a cup of tea in my hands, the roses in the garden swaying gently in the evening breeze. It had been 3 months since Lauren's call, 3 months since that fragile seed of hope took root. The beach house was mine again, fully restored, its walls repainted, David's chair polished, the roses thriving under my care. But more than the house, I'd reclaimed myself, the woman David always knew I was. Lauren's betrayal had shattered me, but it had also forged something new, something unbreakable. Lauren and I hadn't spoken again, but her occasional notice short, careful about her job, her small apartment, her efforts to rebuild kept that seed alive. The last one came yesterday, tucked in an envelope with a photo of her at the coffee shop, smiling faintly behind the counter. "I'm still trying, Mom," Shed written. "I hope you're proud." I was, in a quiet way, but trust was a bridge we'd have to rebuild slowly, step by step. Clara joined me on the porch, her presence as steady as the waves. "You look at peace," she said, settling into the chair beside me. "More than I've seen in a long time." I smiled, the tea warming my hands. It's not perfect, but it's mine. This house, this life, I fought for it, and I'm not done fighting. She raised her glass of wine, her eyes gleaming. To Evelyn Carter, the woman who took on her daughter's betrayal and came out stronger. I laughed, clinking my mug against her glass. To David, who knew I could. We sat in comfortable silence, the ocean's song wrapping around us. I thought about the journey, Lauren's cold text, the forged deed, the courtroom battle, the investment fund that turned the tables. I thought about Mark, now bankrupt and facing fraud charges, his empire crumbled. I thought about Lauren, starting over, learning to live without the glitter of greed. And I thought about me, standing here whole again. Susan had finalized the last of the paperwork last week. The penthouse and commercial properties were generating enough income to secure my future, and Id donated a portion to the shelter where I volunteered, a way to honor David's kindness. The investment fund remained untouched, a safety net I hoped I'd never need. The beach house, though, was my heart, its creaky floors, its salt-stained windows, its roses that bloomed through everything. It was more than a home. It was my proof that I could survive, thrive, even when the world tried to break me. I hadn't decided yet if I'd let Lauren back into my life fully. Her betrayal had left scars, deep and lasting, but her effort small, earnest gave me hope. Maybe one day we'd sit here together, watching the sunset, rebuilding what we'd lost. Or maybe we'd stay distant, two women shaped by the same pain, finding our own paths. Either way, I was okay. I was enough. As the stars began to speckle the sky, I felt David's presence, not as a ghost but as a warmth, a quiet pride. "You're a